SportsBit is powered by BetOnline, driving the opening odds market since 2001. Visit sportsbookreview.com to learn more about BetOnline and its A+ rated platform in the link below.
Hey, welcome into SportsBit. Betting Inside today, Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, November 9th. Big game breakdown, it's here. We'll get to Stanford and Washington tomorrow night, and then the marquee games for the first time since 2002, 3 top 10 games all on Saturday. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Keep this in mind. File it away. Use it in a couple of weeks because they might play again in the MAC title game. For the second year in a row, Ohio takes care of Toledo. Last year, they were catching 15 on the road, won outright. This year, they were bet from +6 down to +3. Dominated the game, won 38-10, held Toledo to 10 points and almost ran for 400 rushing yards. Solich with a great performance and did a great job out coaching Toledo.
Yeah, Jason Candle, not one of his better performances, and it was all about the trenches. Ohio U, the more physical team, 393-53 rushing yard edge, Pauly. That's going to cover a lot of point spreads as an underdog, and of course, bad result for the house with the sharp money all coming on the Bobcats plus the points.
All right, some bad for the books, NBA and more college football. Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan total steamed up from 47 to 51.5. Never a sweat. On 45 at the half and a shootout there that Central Michigan got the W.
Yeah, Chippewas with the win and cover, but the key for the sports books was all the over money coming in. Of course, the over money right side winner. When you score 45 at the half in a game that was opened at 47, you're in pretty good shape. Another bad result for the house in weeknight action.
Over 70 points scored there. This wasn't as much money as it was an adjustment. No Porzingis. Orlando 5.5 up to 9, and they get the money. Favorites went 5-0 last night in the NBA.
Yeah, and again, when you see a huge move, you say, oh, the line moved from 5.5 to 9. Yeah, but that wasn't from bets. The markets adjusted once Porzingis was ruled out for the Knicks. And, here's an Orlando team now. We're 11 games into the season. They had a hot start. They kind of cooled off. Another impressive win last night. They're 7-4. They're in first place in the Southeast division. And, the trio of Gordon, Fournier, and Vujovic. They've got a big three. And, that's a real good thing to have last night. 31 assists against only 12 turnovers. The ball movement for Orlando has been very, very good. Their win last night, not a great result for the books.
Bad for the books. Miami Phoenix, 214-217 the total. That flew over the total. And the Lakers, bad bets, +9 down to +6.5. And the total from 208 to 214.5. Although that was a tough beat as that game died. Not much. Well, I think only 35 points scored in the fourth quarter. After that was on pace to fly over. And the Celtics win their 10th in a row. They cover.
Yeah, from a pace standpoint, the game's supposed to fly over the total. And we saw the markets react to the expected pace of the game with a ton of over money in that Lakers-Celtics game. I believe Boston had their highest possession count of the season, but neither team made a whole lot of shots. And, of course, the move came on the side because Al Horford was sitting, and then Jason Tatum got hurt early in the first quarter of that game. But, Aaron Baines, contributing off the bench, he did great as a starter. Terrific. 21 points, 8 rebounds in 23 minutes. The Celtics rotation is very, very deep. This is not a team you want to make big adjustments for when it comes to guys missing a game or two for injury. Yet the markets did that last night. Bettors paid the price.
College football, early week line moves. Money for Michigan. Maryland beat up third-string quarterback, ton of injuries. Michigan 16.5, also showing a spark on offense with the quarterback change. Virginia Tech taking money. And how about Sparty? D'Antonio, terrific as a dog. Last 14 times he's been a dog of 7 points or more. He's won half of them, and he's 11-3 ATS. This was 16 in some spots. Now it's 14.5. Number 12 against number 13 in the committee rankings, yet number 12's catching 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, certainly. When you look at the recent meetings between Michigan State and Ohio State, the Spartans beating the spread by nearly 3 touchdowns each of the last 2 years against Ohio State. There was an outright upset win and a 17-16 loss. They were plus 20.5 last year against Ohio State. So certainly no shock that Sparty's seeing money. What about TCU? They've taken the money. The market's expecting a letdown from both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State off their wild shootout last week. Markets really haven't liked Wisconsin all year. We've seen money come on Iowa against the Badgers. And, in the no surprise point spread move of the week, Missouri taking money over Tennessee. The Vols are a team that very few bettors are excited about getting involved with, whether it comes to the pros or the Joes. And, of course, Missouri on a nice little point spread run of their own. They've been a hot commodity in SEC betting in recent weeks. And look, Florida State taking money again, like they have every week.
Unbelievable.
Seminoles down to plus 16 against Clemson on Saturday night.
They haven't got the money once this year. That's stunning. Big one in the Pac-12 on Friday night. Revenge for Stanford as they were blown out last year. It's Washington and Stanford, and then we'll get to the three marquee games with the Catholics versus the Convicts. Part 2, we can do that with Miami and Notre Dame. And we'll get to Georgia and Auburn and TCU and Oklahoma straight ahead on SportsBet. Betting Inside today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey guys, thanks for stopping by Sportsbook Review, YouTube's largest sports betting channel. Every day we're here giving you the most up-to-date news and info, all to help you make the best bet. On top of that, guys, it's free. So look, do us a favor, click the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment or a question. Our goal here is to make sure that everyone becomes a smarter, better. So join the SPR Army today and start winning with Sportsbook Review.
Back on SportsBet, Betting Inside today, big game breakdown. Are we sponsored and powered by Bet Online? Check out the bonus page, sportsbookreview.com, for the latest and best offers. To open a new account today, Friday night on Fox, let me get it right, Fox Sports 1, 7:30 Pacific. Washington and Stanford. Washington is 645 the total. Stanford, a different team at home as opposed to the road. 44-6 last year at home. Washington was laying 3.5. The worst Stanford loss in the Dave and Shaw era. Bryce Love having a special season, getting some Heisman consideration as he should, averaging almost 10 yards per carry. That's the good news. The problem is the quarterback play's been lousy. They're one-dimensional. You can sell out to stop the run.
It's insane when you look at Stanford stats. Bryce Love is averaging 9.6 yards per carry, okay, with 12 touchdowns. And the passing game is averaging less than 7 yards per pass attempt. So Bryce Love, handing the ball off to Bryce Love is nearly 3 yards per rush better than throwing the football. That's bizarre. Neither Kellen Crisp nor KJ Costello have been consistent at the quarterback position. It looks like Shaw's made the move full-time to the redshirt Frosh Costello, building for the future, even off a bad game at Washington State. Remember, there were nasty weather conditions. I mean, be aware of that looking at the box score and the recap, any of that stuff. The game was played in wind. The game was played in snow. David Shaw, quote, talking about the Frost QB, it's hard to get thrown in a game like that, in the weather, against a team like that. That's tough duty, and tough duty again this week. I take full responsibility. It was not a good game by me, not good. I have all the excuses, which I hate to hear from other people. I hate excuses. But the bottom line is we got to do a better job of mixing it up. Certainly for the Cardinal, they're going to have to make some plays in the passing game this week, something they haven't been able to do on a consistent basis all season long.
Yep, and if they have to punt, watch out because they're kicking it to Pettis. They have to punt to him. 9 career punt returns already for this season. He also has 507 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. You also have one of the most underrated backs in college football with Gaskin, and he is very productive. You look at his numbers, throw up that graphic. 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns 2 years ago. Last year, 1,373, 10 touchdowns. This year, 910 touchdowns. Good quarterback, good running back, good wide receiver, good special teams. How the hell did they lose in the desert at Arizona State 13-7? A bizarre game. 37 career catches with 3 touchdowns as well, career for Gaskin. Browning usually puts up big numbers against bad teams, but I don't know what to make of Stanford, because when they played the good teams, remember they were run out at USC, and they were not impressive last week on the road against Washington State. They couldn't do much. I know there were bad conditions, but lost that one as well. And I know Love was out. Again, the quarterback play's been lousy. They were lucky to beat Oregon State on the road the week before when they needed a fumble and won by 1 against a bad Oregon State team that only has 1 win.
Sure, I'm certainly not excited about the Stanford side of the equation here. And when you talk about the bad QB play, what does the bad QB play mean? It means you have more failed third down conversion, which means you punt more, which means Dante Pettis gets more chances to deliver another big return for the Huskies. But at the same time, we've seen enough of Jake Browning now. I've seen enough of Jake Browning now. Jake Browning has been great, as you mentioned, great against the bad defenses. In the step up in class games, Jake Browning has not been good, and that's been fairly consistent this season and last season. The question, of course, is Stanford's defense any good? Because we've certainly seen more cracks than usual from the Cardinal defensively in 2017 compared to most recent seasons.
Full marks to Peterson, too, as they put a lot of guys on the NFL, and they are fewest yards per game allowed and yards per play as well. TCU and Oklahoma, the big showdown at night, 5 o'clock Pacific. Oklahoma 6.5, 62.5 the total at Bet Online. And check out the strong promotions and exceptional customer service at Bet Online. Could be the first of one of two meetings. Remember, the Big 12, even though they didn't expand and still have one division, they added a title game. So they could be a rematch coming up in Jerry's world in December. We'll see how all the tiebreakers work out as well. This is going to be a fascinating matchup. Something has to give, Teddy. Oklahoma leads the nation in yards per game and yards per play on offense. TCU number 1 in the Big 12 and 5th in the nation in yards per play allowed.
Yeah, and of course, when you start looking at Big 12 tiebreakers, you can make yourself crazy. Note the fact that both of these teams have beaten Oklahoma State, although Iowa State owns the tiebreakers against both TCU and Oklahoma. Now, the series history here, there have been 5 meetings since TCU joined the Big 12. All 5 of them have been tight, competitive contests, all of them decided by a touchdown or less. Last year, Oklahoma wins 52-46. There were 3.5-point road chalk, and it was a wild game. Baker Mayfield, 274 yards and 2 touchdowns, ran for 55 and 2 TDs more. But you want to talk about a game with swings? TCU led 21-3 after the first quarter. And then Oklahoma went on a 42-3 run to make it 49-24 going into the fourth. And then 22 straight TCU points, final score 49-46. Oklahoma with one final drive to kick a field goal, 52-46 final. They held on over the last minute 55 and did not give up the game-winning scores. And look, it's a Sooners team with Baker Mayfield that has gotten it done offensively this year, despite the fact that 3 guys from skill positions last year that are in the NFL now. So the numbers were in question when you're talking about, can this QB replicate what he did a season ago? Well, not anymore. 11.9 yards per pass attempt. That's sick, Pauly. 28 touchdowns versus only 5 picks. He also has 5 rushing touchdowns, and that's despite all the youth at the skill position. All top 3 receivers, all sophomores. The leading rusher is a Frosch. The second leading rusher is a soph. There's only one other senior in the entire starting offense for Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield's gotten it done. Let's give him credit.
In the past, a war of words between Patterson and Mayfield. Mayfield said he used it as motivation because Patterson didn't offer a scholarship. Mayfield, quote, he's one of the best defensive minds in the game. He's had that defense ready to play us every year. Patterson said with Mayfield, I've always liked him and admired the way he competes. If you love competitors, you got to admire what he's been able to do. TCU might be able to slow down that great Oklahoma offense, but it's a bad Oklahoma defense, no doubt. What Kenny Hill will we get? The last 2 weeks, horrible. They lost 14 to their defense was terrific and gave up only 30 yards in the second half against Iowa State and lost the game. Hill had 3 turnovers and 2 in the red zone, and then they didn't do much on offense, only gave up 7 points at home to Texas before they won. So if they're going to win this game, Kenny Hill's got to play well, plain and simple.
No question. I mean, when you have 14 first downs and 18 first downs over the last 2 weeks, 307 yards against Iowa State, 343 against Texas, those are not, we're going to knock off Oklahoma type of numbers. For the Horned Frogs to have a realistic chance of winning this ball game, they're going to have to put up points. And it's interesting. You say, where are the correlations here, side and total? I think TCU correlates with the over side of the equation. I'm confident Oklahoma's going to get theirs. I'm not confident TCU is going to be able to trade points with them. If the Horned Frogs can trade points, the game likely to go over the total. TCU fairly likely to get the money.
That's number 5 against number 6. Up next, number 3 against number 7, and number 1 against number 10 in the computer rankings, committee rankings rather, coming up next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, big game breakdown rolls on. Sponsored and powered by BetOnline. The big one, also Saturday night, 5 o'clock Pacific. When they met 4 years in a row in the 80s, they were both in the top 10. Amazing, 4 years in a row. And here they are back, number 3 against number 7 in the committee rankings. Notre Dame at Miami. Notre Dame is 3, 57.5 the total. 30-27 in South Bend last year. The Irish won. It was 20-0, and then 27 straight by the Canes. Then Notre Dame gets the last 10, kicked the field goal with 34 seconds left to win it. Winner stays alive for the playoffs. Loser not out of it, because Miami can still beat Clemson and win the ACC. Very surprised, pleasantly surprised with what Miami did last week. Brought their A game, dominated Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's only point set up on Miami turnovers. But can they bring that A game 2 weeks in a row? Tough assignment here.
Yeah, and in watching the game last week, part of my eye test was Virginia Tech bad more than Miami good. I thought the Hokies played a terrible game and were not as good as advertised in that contest. But you talk about Miami, and something we talked about previewing the game against the Hokies last week, what's going to happen at the running back position without Mark Walton? Well, the sophomore Travis Homer, he stepped up big time the last couple of weeks. Now for the season, 612 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry. He's also been a weapon out of the backfield. I do have my concerns about Malik Rozier, though. I'm not impressed with him repeatedly this season. He's used a fair bit in the running game against Virginia Tech at 84 yards and a touchdown on the ground, but he also threw 3 interceptions in that game, despite the fact that Miami was playing with the lead. Rozier, the last 2 games, only 27 of 60 with 4 INTs.
Something has to give here, too. Notre Dame with the best offensive line in college football. They got 2 first-round picks on the left side of the line, and you're going against the Miami front 7, which is a ton of NFL players as well. Richt and Diaz doing a great job, but they gambled on starting 3 freshman linebackers. And they're last year, and they're way ahead of schedule now with sophomores, one of the best linebacker groups in the country. They're number 1 in the nation in tackles for loss. Will Notre Dame be able to run the ball and dominate up front? That's the entire game and the whole key to this handicap. I say yes.
Sure, but I mean, when you're talking about that trio of linebackers, Zach McLeod, Shaquille Quarterman, Michael Pinckney, 3 guys who all started as freshmen who are now sophomores. So, they've been starters now for a year and a half. They're really good. And you talk about, as you mentioned, number 1 in the nation tackles for loss versus the most dominant line in college football. So it's a fascinating matchup in the trenches. Look, the Irish are what? It's 7.0 yards per carry for the season. Josh Adams, nearly 1,200 rushing yards, 8.7. Brandon Wimbush, 639 rushing yards at 6.3 yards per carry. But that running game has allowed Brandon Wimbush to take his deep shots down the field. 9 different Notre Dame receivers have caught a pass for more than 20 yards. 4 of them have catches for more than 40 yards. And you can run the football. You can take deep shots. The Irish have been running the football all year. And Brian Kelly set up the offense this season to take advantage of that strong offensive line. Quote, the pieces were certainly here. It was a change of philosophy in terms of what we were going to really hang our hat on, in terms of who we were going to be, our identity. So our identity was going to run through that offensive line. In the offseason, there was a commitment to it. The hiring, the philosophy, the total makeover of our entire mental psyche in terms of being physical was all a part of that. Kelly identified the strength of that line in the offseason, and he's been able to take advantage of that offensive line so far in the regular season. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the daytime.
One more, number 1 against number 10, 12:30 Pacific, CBS. Georgia, this line has shifted. A couple weeks ago, Auburn was favored. Georgia's now 2.5 on the road, 47 the total. And you're getting, they're starting this shit already. Can a 2-loss team make the playoff? Well, if Auburn wins out, that would be 2 wins over Georgia, and they would beat Alabama. So they beat number 1 twice and then knock off Alabama as well in the SEC title game. And 2 teams ahead of them are going to lose coming up this week. But this Georgia running game, we've talked about it all year on SportsBit, 3 likely pros in the backfield, still doing this with a freshman quarterback with Fromm. Maybe the best thing that ever happened to him, a blessing in disguise. Eason got hurt week 1 against App State, Teddy.
And it's not like Eason's a bad quarterback. Eason was a guy who was expected to make Georgia a contender in the SEC East this year. He got hurt. Fromm's been really good. But, of course, we are talking about a young quarterback in his most hostile road environment yet. But let's talk about this 2-loss thing making the playoffs very, very briefly. Certainly, it's something that the media is going to harp on. If there's any 2-loss team that can do it, it's Auburn, because of the fact they get a chance to play the number 1 team twice and the number 2 team. So if they win all 3 of those games, to beat number 1 twice and number 2, guess what? Maybe a 2-loss team can get in. And you talked about the fact that at least 2 teams ahead of them go down this week. There's a chance for Auburn to move up. And boy, that Tigers offense is explosive. It is deep and explosive. Quick strike touchdowns. 4 different running backs have a carry from 38 yards or more this season. They have 2 touchdown runs of 60 yards or more. 6 different players have caught a pass for 49 yards or more. 3 touchdown passes of more than 50 yards. Jarrett Stidham, he's got the arm to make plays, and he's got enough experience in the system, and he's got enough playmakers around him. 9.1 yards per pass, 11 touchdowns, only 3 INTs. Auburn's a very dangerous team for the undefeated Bulldogs to face.
Fromm passed the first test on the road when they beat Notre Dame, but they don't like to throw it with them. I mean, they have 3 good running backs, but they don't want to put a lot of pressure on the kid, and they want to keep it simple. The stats are okay. Well, they're not bad. 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but they haven't played anybody since Miss State was a nice win, since the Notre Dame game. But 7 straight wins by 14 or more and 6 by 25 or more, so no pressure situations there. Malzahn quote, I think from a coach's standpoint, no matter what it is, you got to try to stop what they do best. If they threw the ball, you got to stop the throwing. But they run the ball very well, so obviously that's where it starts. They are efficient throwing the football, and that's been the most impressive thing is the way he's protected the football. You have Chubb, who's averaging 6.2 yards per carry, and Michelle at 7.9, probably both going to be drafted. 3 others have at least 32 carries in this one. What do you think? What do you think of the shift in the line movement now that the road team is favored?
Well, I'm not surprised that Georgia's been a very popular team here in Las Vegas, and they've been a popular wise guy team in Las Vegas. Their defensive stats are off the charts. So I'm not surprised at all that they're going to likely to go off as road favorites, certainly road favorites now as we talk about the game. But from a betting standpoint, man, this is a tough one, Pauly. Interesting game to watch. Not a game that I plan on wagering on, certainly not before the opening kickoff.
All right, Georgia or pass for me. Auburn too inconsistent, blew that big lead at LSU. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game as well. And I also like Notre Dame. Money time, play of the day. What do you want to do, Teddy? Let's go with the Irish. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. Game betting number 165. Notre Dame -3. Look, the Catholics are better than the convicts this year. I think last week's impressive Miami win was more about Virginia Tech playing poorly. Hokies not as good as advertised. Notre Dame is as good as advertised. Battle-tested Fighting Irish get the win and the cover on the road in Miami. Take the Fighting Irish -3. That's our play of the day.
All right, incredible. What a weekend it's going to be. What a Saturday it's going to be. We'll recap everything Monday. 7 matchups where ranked teams play one another and the 3 games with top 10 teams meeting. Tomorrow, weekend preview edition. The Vikings off the bye, favored in Washington. We'll get to that. A big game between the Saints and Bills. Sunday night game, New England at Denver. And then we have Dallas and Atlanta. We'll talk to you then and recap everything that happens tonight on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com. Thanks for watching.